What request did Solomon have of Hiram, king of Tyre? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Kings on walking through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 1 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 to 7. Before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 1. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Kings chapter 5, beginning at verse 1. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent his servants to Solomon because he had heard that they had anointed him king in the place of his father, for Hiram had always loved David. Then Solomon sent to Hiram, saying, You know how my father David could not build a house for the name of the Lord his God, because of the wars which were fought against him on every side, until the Lord put his foes under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side. There is neither adversary nor evil occurrence. And behold, I propose to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord spoke to my father David, saying, Your son, whom I will set on your throne in your place, he shall build the house for my name. Now therefore command that they cut down cedars for me from Lebanon, and my servants will be with your servants, and I will pay you wages for your servants according to whatever you say. For you know there is none among us who has skill to cut timber like the Sidonians. So it was, when Hiram heard the words of Solomon, that he rejoiced greatly, and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, for he has given David a wise son over this great people. In the last chapter, we had a summary of the extent of Solomon's kingdom over the period of his reign. As we saw, we found that Solomon had built on the successes of his father David and ruled over all the land promised to Abraham, either directly or indirectly. He collected taxes and provisions from all these peoples, so that Solomon became wealthy and powerful, as did the people of Israel. Coming to chapter 5, we step back to the overall narrative of 1 Kings and Solomon's preparations for the temple. If you recall back to 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 to 13, this is what God promised to David. When your days are fulfilled, and you rest with your fathers, I will set up your seed after you, who will come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build me a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. David wanted to build the temple to God, but God had not asked for such, and as Solomon implies here, and 2 Chronicles will confirm, David was barred from building God a temple because David was a man of war with much bloodshed. God consoled David, though, by telling David that his son, who of course is Solomon, would build a temple to God instead. And so I'm sure that David was disappointed, but would take solace in the fact that God would allow a temple to be built. Chapter 6 will tell us that we're now about 4 years into the reign of Solomon, and so now the preparations for the temple have begun in earnest. The question is, where would the supplies come from, and who would build it? Now, we might think that Solomon would turn to his fellow Israelites to build it, because after all, what was being built was a temple to the God that Israel worshipped. However, that was not where Solomon turned, for he turned to Hiram, king of Tyre. Tyre was a coastal city far up north in the Mediterranean Sea that should have been in the tribal territory of Asher, but was left unconquered by the Israelites and largely remained independent, even to the days of Solomon. Now, why would Solomon go to Hiram to build the temple? Well, the text, along with what we've read in the past, should give us some clues. First, Hiram was the one who helped build David's palace back in 2 Samuel chapter 5. So the people of Israel and the people of Tyre had a history of building things together. The second reason is that Hiram was at peace with Israel, being a friend of David, so Solomon could be assured that this foreign nation, who had helped them in the past, would be willing to do so again. And then third, those of Tyre and Sidon were skilled at woodworking, skills that would be invaluable in building such a large structure like the temple. In fact, Solomon said that nobody in Israel had the skill of the Sidonians in cutting timber. Using them instead of the people in Israel thus would be a no-brainer. Solomon, though, told Hiram that he was not seeking a gift of labor from Hiram, for he would pay the workers for building the temple. Their wages wouldn't be set by Solomon either, but by Hiram in order to ensure that fair wages were paid. The lumber that would be used were the cedars of Lebanon, some of the best wood in the area. Now, when Hiram heard these words from Solomon, he was quite pleased, praising the Lord that David had such a wise son to reign after him. And when you look at the words and actions of Solomon, you can say that they were wise. He didn't force Hiram to do anything, instead requesting that he do so because of his relationship with David and because God had promised David that Solomon would build God a temple. He didn't make Hiram's people slaves to build it, as was often done at that time. Rather, he paid the laborers to build it. And Solomon desired only the best wood and skill for building of the temple to the only God of this universe. Only the best would do. Hiram saw this wisdom in Solomon, and so will agree to assist Solomon in this endeavor. We'll get his official response, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Kings chapter 5, verses 8 to 18, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.